Welcome to Produce Talks, brought to you by the Canadian Produce Marketing Association. Each episode brings you fresh insights from leaders across the produce supply chain, growers, retailers, innovators, and experts shaping the future of fresh. Wherever you work in the industry, we're here to keep you informed, inspired, and connected. So let's get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for allowing us to have a chance to talk to three of the major retailers in Canada and talk about what's in store for 2026. I'm Dan Martin. I'm the Chief Operating Officer, Executive Vice President of Earth Fresh. We're a potato packer shipper located in Burlington, Ontario. I'll be your moderator for this afternoon, and hopefully we've got some great interaction with everybody as we go forward. I'm going to turn and introduce to Ryan. We'll start, and we'll have the panelists introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Ryan Goad. I'm a Senior Sourcing Director for Loblaw. Essentially, I'm one of three senior directors that oversee the entire enterprise sourcing for fresh produce, floral, and garden. I've been with Loblaw 22 years now. It was my only real job outside of the family business, that kind of thing. I started at store level, and I've been touching produce procurement in some way, shape, or form for the last 16 years.
Hello, I'm Cindy. I'm the National Sourcing Manager for Sobeys. I didn't think I was the only one so long with Sobeys, but I'm 21 years, so we've got a very experienced panel up here. I started in the private label business and then moved over to grocery, so I'm actually only 2 years fresh in produce, but Sobeys, 115 years of retail experience. I think I've been there that long because of the people. I'm sure that's why you've been there so long, but thank you.
Daniel Walden. I'm with Longos. I'm the Senior Category Manager there. Like these guys, I've been there for, I think it's my 23rd year now. 14 years in produce. I spent 5 years in finance within Longos, and I got really bored of it and decided produce was the best way to go. So yeah, it's our 70th anniversary. We've been going on strong at this for 70 years now, so I'm looking forward to this.
You work 20 years in the industry, and you could be up on a panel as well.
I know. I think I'm the young one up here. Hope they call me kid. Okay, let's jump right into the question. So the topic on everyone's mind is trade. So we talk about what's further being impacted by our recent geopolitical challenges and disruptions. So along the supply chain, there are different challenges, but from a retail perspective, what impacts have you seen in the past year, and what are you anticipating in 2027? Ryan, do you want to start?
Thanks for that really light one to get going. Yes. I mean, obviously, like the negotiation with Kuzma and trade with the Americans is the single biggest point that we're looking at, right? That's up for review. We've seen a lot in the press about different positioning and negotiation standards. I'm sure a lot of people have thoughts about, is it actually going to get done this year, or is it going to bleed over into future years? I think as an industry, we need to be prepared for volatility the number of years coming up. So really, this kind of hits home for us, this idea around food security and supply security for our customers in our network. A lot of that means potentially outside of the US, growing Canadian, looking abroad into other countries, that kind of a thing. But definitely overall availability and service to our customers is top of mind through all of that volatility. In addition to the trade thing, another thing that we're watching very closely is the long-term weather forecast for 2026. So I don't know if anyone's heard of what a super El Nino is. I learned that term. So that has the potential to cause some pretty significant weather and inclement event disruption later this year across South America, Central America in particular. And that's typically where the majority of product gets imported from over the winter. So we could be in for a bumpy ride. We'll see.
We all know every day is a different day in our industry, so just another one to come. Cindy.
Yeah, when I first started produce, everyone's like, be prepared. It changes every week. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It really does. And I think that's become the norm now. I've just experienced like climate, like you say. Fortunately, we're from Canada, but we are dependent on imports, right? We can't grow produce year round. So as recently as the freeze in Florida, like how quickly we have to diversify. And I think that's what's really important. And what we have to keep looking forward to is having strong partners, both locally and overseas, to make sure that we continue to, like you say, have the supply and the availability for our customer. And that's going to be a big focus. I think it's going to continue and it's not going to stop.
Daniel.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think anything's going to change. We can definitely do our best to start planning or continue planning, but it's really going to come down to being able to adapt, working on your supplier or your grower relationships, and just being able to adapt and change and move to different growing regions and take advantage of emerging markets too that may be coming out or trying to get the product into Canada.
Excellent. And we'll stay on the trade piece because obviously trade is one of the big impacts these days. So we know at least some consumers are still focused on food costs. Have you seen a shift in the consumer? Any patterns as a result of the trade and the cost of food? Cindy, I'll let you take that one first.
Definitely the customers' big shift in their shopping behavior. Like we're customers ourselves, but I don't think it means cheaper, right? Like I think it's finding the right value for our customer. And luckily with produce, there's a tie to health and wellness, right? So we're all still people wanting to deliver that, have the right balance of value and quality. Like I'll speak from a mom of two. Like I'm not going to always look for the cheapest. I still need to find nutritional food that my kids will 100% eat. And so making sure that whatever that I'm purchasing is good value because it's getting consumed. But yeah, definitely a big shift. People are looking at more promotions. They're being more intentional with their decisions. And value size is another one, right? Like I see a lot of growth in my packaged salads category that people are shifting more to the value size because there's more value out of that than buying a single. So there's definitely a big shift for sure.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say. You know, it's not about the cheapness, but at the same time, the consumers are not going to sacrifice the freshness. They want the quality produce. They expect that, and they expect it at a reasonable price. You know, they understand that to get quality, it is going to cost a little bit, but the priority is the freshness.
Yeah, I love how you started with this idea of value, right? The proposition, not just what you pay, but what you get for it at the end of the day. Yeah, the way we think about that is it has to eat well. There's never been more product available for people to feed their families than now. So you have to have something that performs when they get it home. And everyone knows, like if you have young kids, they are the best bricks testers in the industry, right? If it doesn't meet muster, you know immediately, right? And then back to this idea of value and freshness, I think you hit it on the head. The worst experience a consumer can have, in my opinion, is if they buy something and then they either don't eat it when it gets home or when they get it home, it spoils before they can eat it. And then that's a lost purchase, right? So it's not just the pickup price, but how can we make sure that there's enough shelf life and freshness left in that product that it will survive until it's consumed at the customer's home?
Excellent. So what about the focus of many consumers that have on buying or eating more Canadian products where possible? Is that impacting, Daniel, maybe I'll let you take that one first.
Yeah, there's absolutely much more focus on Canadian and Ontario produce. You know, for us being a local Ontario retailer, you know, our consumers expect us to support those businesses. Fortunately for us, we do, like Cindy, you said earlier, we do rely on imports. But when it is local and it's available, our consumers, our guests expect us to have it in store and readily available for them.
Yeah, I think if I can turn back the clock and think chronologically, I think there was a very pronounced and emotional response to when all of these trade tensions kicked off back in March last year. I think over time, consumers have kind of spoken with their wallets on what they're willing to spend on, depending on the origin that where it's coming from, whether that's avoiding US or favoring Canadian or whatnot. Definitely a growing demand for products grown in Canada. And I'm sure you've seen in the news, the Weston family made a very significant commitment for spend to ultimately build the produce industry capacity within Canada. And that's the goal, I think, long term. We want to all become more self-reliant to feed our own country, right? But there's also a very real conversation here around, again, back to this value play. What we have seen over the last year is that items that have I would say, closer to parity or more reasonable price gap versus, say, a imported or a US product tend to fare much better sustainably in the market than something that's asking a massive markup, which might have a great splash at the very beginning, but that's not necessarily sustainable growth given the current economic climate.
I had the packaged salad category, so it was we were very important at that time because all the CEA, right? Like there's a lot more and more greenhouse that's going to be able to allow for more 52-week, but I agree, like the price gap between that and non has to be reasonable. But I wanted to say that I think there's still a very big education gap on what truly is Canadian, even as a customer myself, not knowing what is truly in season and what is and when. Like I was in the store a year or during the tariffs when everything was happening, people wanted to buy Canadian and I was suggesting a Canadian product to a customer and she immediately showed her partner, oh yeah, this is grown in Canada. She's like, yeah, right. And like I was just saying, I was like, that's what the packaging says. It's true. But I think there's a really big opportunity here as a retailer, as a supplier, CPMA to continue to educate that, because I think we need to make that decision easier for the customer to continue to support it, but we definitely need to get more information out there.
Great answer. So these immediate challenges have impacts, but setting those aside and looking to the future planning, what other focus areas do your organizations have? Or what other focus areas are on your organization's radar?
A big piece of what we're looking at outside of the immediate supply concerns would be this idea that the global market is very much shrinking. And so what can we do? I believe that this idea of supply resilience and risk mitigation has come up in the past. Are there new markets that we should be looking at opening for import into Canada? Are there existing markets, but new items are being planted in these existing markets, perhaps supported by climate change? It's not necessarily all bad, as you can now grow more tropical items in more places of the world as well, right? But trying to strike that balance between, of course, promoting the domestic development and production of product, but balancing that off with risk mitigation strategies from a global perspective. And I will say I'm really pleased to see over the last couple of years, for sure, a massive spike in the amount of international companies coming to this show, and not just companies, but also trade ministries and government entities from around the world taking an interest in Canada. And I think that helps us not only from a retailer's perspective, but it also opens up prospective markets for Canadian growers to sell their products to more people as well. So it should be good for both sides of the fence.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We had over 25 different countries today in a event we held at noon, just to see the trade and the differences that we're seeing now versus 20 years ago is wild. Cindy, you want to take a crack at this one as well?
Focusing on that as well. I think on top of that, supply, of course, making sure that we have that, but continuing to improve the in-store experience for our customer, right? I'll say I'll want to differentiate from you and you to keep our customer, but that innovation, like continuing to find what's next, keeping the category exciting and supporting, like you say, there's so many more international foods now. Like, how do we bring that into our stores? But that's definitely another area of focus for us. Yeah.
A lot of the discussions around trade and, with these negotiations and everything's going, it's going to open up new markets. And for me, speaking from some experience, I've managed in the citrus category for a few years now. You see a lot more growth, Egyptian citrus, Australian citrus has really been coming to enter into the market, and it's really filling in some of the gaps, and the quality on the fruit has been outstanding. So it's really opening up that market, allowing our consumers to really try something new and get that great eating experience that they always they're looking for.
Great, fantastic. So all of your companies are members of the Canada Grocery Code, which establishes clear standards for commercial relationships in the grocery sector. How does it impact your organization operationally?
It's great. It's a great step forward for the Grocery Code of Conduct. It's about transparency and consistency, I think, across all of us between retailers and suppliers. At Sobeys, we're very focused on that, working with our suppliers and just making sure that we're consistent with communication and how to move forward, and that it's consistent across the industry. So yeah, very important.
I think the key word there is transparency. It really keeps the lens of communication open, disputes, cost changes, retail changes, ad planning, anything there really just keeps it all open and visible for all parties involved.
Very similar on our end. The way we package it internally is it's the way we do things. No different than some of the other practices that we endorse as a corporation. But there's a major element of training people, retraining people, making sure everyone very clearly understands the level of conduct that we're holding ourselves to, as well as also reviewing the existing policies that are in place in the business to make sure those satisfy that.
Excellent. Could you give us your thoughts around the role that AI has or may have on the procurement or distribution of fresh produce?
I'm going to try and keep this short because I'm such a nerd at heart, right? I love this kind of technology development.
We got 15 minutes. Take time.
So if I can talk very broadly, over the last 5 to 10 years, I have seen a massive explosion in tech in the industry sector that is great at collecting data on things. So millions of data points, temperature, humidity, shock, light, inputs to production. There haven't been, up to now, amazing tools to actually do something with that data. And that's always the hard part. How do you turn data points into something that's actionable or an insight or something to act upon, right? So I hope that AI, as we get more developed models and algorithms here, will be able to synthesize those millions of data points into something that we can actually turn into a strategy and act on more easily. Outside of that, it's a great executive assistant to summarize emails and stuff for sure, right? But It's something that we're constantly having to remind our teams that this isn't a passing fad. We would like everyone to be up to speed on this thing. I think of this as kind of like the magical ability to do a Google search back in like the early to mid 2000s, right? It's like, how does that person know everything? They know how to Google search. This is the next natural evolution of that. And we all need to keep pace.
You know, like you said, it's not just a passing fad. It's here. It's maybe scary at times, but, you know, it's really just educating yourself and understanding how it works. I think we've barely touched the surface of what it's going to be able to do for us. You know, aside from the data points, you know, you take that, it's definitely going to change our QC processes, any kind of demand forecasting. So it's exciting to see what it's going to bring in the future.
I think we've all experienced what AI can do, be more efficient for sure. And so I think it's going to be very valuable for produce. We're needing to make very quick decisions. And with those data points, hopefully we'll be able to get better at demand forecasting, helping to reduce shrink. And I think having that data will help us make those decisions faster eventually and help mitigate that risk. And I think it's really going to be a big part of our future for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. How many times has someone approached you to say, oh, I can get you this view of something? And then you're sitting there saying, okay, but I can't integrate that into any existing business processes yet.
Yeah.
It's, the evolution is so fast and so furious. It's fun to watch. Okay. So to wrap up, I'd like to give each of you the opportunity to share one key takeaway for the audience. What's the most important insight or action item you'd like them to remember from this discussion?
I think the one takeaway that I'd say is, I think in order to be successful in produce from a retailer and a supplier perspective is the strong relationships. You have to have the strong relationships with your suppliers, and then I'll call them partners, and then being adaptable. I think we're in produce. It's volatile. It's constantly changing, and we need to be able to adapt and move quickly and move from those decisions, be able to be creative and flexible with everything thrown at us. And we can't do that without our partners. So I think that's the one takeaway that I leave here.
I think, sitting here at our stage, procurement, we can plan, strategize, but all that strategy is no good without execution. And execution happens at the operations, at the store level. So there's that really focusing on how to get that messaging into your operations, your operations team, so that they can execute and they have the knowledge to educate all the consumers and the guests that are coming in through the stores to make the purchases.
Outside of saying, obviously, what's best for the customer is why we're all here, our raison d'etre. We'll park that for a second. That should be table stakes. More around this idea that with increased volatility around us comes increased potential opportunity, and really encourage people that this is the time for bold action to potentially pay off massively for total industry. So if it's trying a new crop in Canada that has never been tried before, or a new technology to extend the seasonality of your crop, the market is looking for this technology now. The fire is right. The iron is hot to strike.
Excellent. Those of you that saw the speaker yesterday, I think Beef Fiji was one of the most impactful things that I got out of it. It was quickly, I don't know who saw it, hands up, hands down, but it was a country that had never grown potatoes before, but they were at the Potato Expo and they were going to bring the industry to their country. It's kind of an interesting concept. So we can do anything we set our minds to. Okay, well, I think that's going to wrap up the Learning Lounge, but just a thank you from the CPMA for our guests and our guest speakers, and thank you all for attending.
Good job.